Are the Eagles a fade in the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge? How do you handle Sam Laporta in the chase for $500,000? And what players do you need in your lineup to win that life-changing $500,000 grand prize in the FFPC one more time this year? Plus, the 2023 FantasyPros Championship $1 million grand prize winner Brenden Goebert is going to drop by to talk about how he built his seven-figure squad, how he spent watching the games in Week 17, how he's going to spend that cash, and much more. We've got a great show for you. It's our FFPC World Famous Playoff Challenge preview. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men that need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Bulkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, Ferrell and I make an FFPC playoff challenge lineup for you to utilize this weekend in the chase for the $500,000 grand prize and more. I'll be honest with you, with that lineup, I have submitted I haven't submitted. I don't play in the playoff challenge because I work for the company, but I have crafted the lineup and I'm going to let Ferrell take a look at it as far as what he thinks of it and if any changes need to be made, or you can do the same thing at home. Check it out, and if you like part of it, use it. If you don't like any of it, don't use any of it, or you can tweak it, whatever you want to do. It's all about the FFPC Playoff Challenge tonight, as well as our special guest who is coming up in about 13 minutes, our 2023 inaugural FantasyPros Championship $1 million grand prize winner, Brenden Goebert. He's going to join to talk about his unique draft strategy. When I looked at his draft, I was really surprised at how it turned out and how he built this team. We're going to talk about the two positions that he faded in his draft and much more. That's all coming up here in, like I said, about 12 minutes or so. If you want to connect with us on X, do so at hsffhour. I am at Eric Balkman. Always check out Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. And don't forget about all the big game Sunday drafts that are going on at the KFFSC. You can pop on down to Caesars, Southern Indiana for the big party. I still hope I'm going to be there. I plan on being there. It's just a matter of me worrying about childcare that weekend. But I participated in the drafts online last year and they were a blast. So hopefully you're checking that out at KFFSC.com. Facebook.com/hsffhour is where you can reach us. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for me, for Ferrell, for Brenden, now is the time to send them in. We'll try to get to all those questions, tweets, and emails throughout the show tonight. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce, and of course, our producer and mutual friend, Rob. Now, big night tonight because this is the eve of the kickoff of the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. There is still time to get in. If you're not familiar, what you want to do is go to myffpc.com, myffpc.com. It is a contest that features no draft, no salary cap, and no weekly management. You just choose the 12 players that you want to ride for the duration of the postseason by kickoff on Saturday afternoon, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then just watch those points pile up throughout the playoffs. Remember, you can only pick one player per team. And if you're lucky enough to pick two players who are going against each other in the big game, aka Super Bowl, then you will get double points for those players in the contest as well. You can enter for $35 and win $100,000, or you can enter for $200 and win $500,000. That's the FFPC Playoff Challenge. Enter now, myffpc.com. I think the $200 version is just over 75% full, and the $35 version is about 85% full. And I always say you can tweak the lineups all the way up till kickoff. The biggest thing is getting them in the competition right now, so you don't have to worry about a sellout. You can get in tonight and figure out, do all your lineup setting tomorrow. That's the way that I would recommend to do it. Remember to like, subscribe, comment on this video, share it with your friends and enemies, and get notified by clicking on the bell. So every time we go live, you're going to know when that is, and you can check out all the great content we have here. I am merely the pilot. I am steering the ship, which I guess would make me the captain, not the pilot. But the guy who really drives the show, the guy who everybody tunes in for, is the guy I'm going to bring on right now, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, the incomparable Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, happy eve of the NFL playoffs, baby.
With an introduction like that, I've now decided that 2024 is going to be my year. So I feel really good. It's just New Year's Eve all over again. Thank you, Balky. Nice to see you.
Absolutely. It's good to see you, and Happy New Year, too. I forget this is your first show of 2024 that you're doing. So glad to have you back. You did some recon work in Las Vegas last week?
I did. It was a short trip, but I got some things done. And I'm pleased that I went. I'm pleased to be home. I don't know when I'm going again. I'm scheduled to be out there Super Bowl week, but we will see. But thanks for the plug about our Super Sunday Sweet 16, Balky. We're down to just a few 10 or 12 spots remaining. So I'd love to have some of the listeners jump in before they're all gone.
Absolutely. KFFSC.com is where to go for that. It always puts me in a good mood. And
yes.
You know who could probably use being in a good mood right now? A.J. Brown, Ferrell. I don't know what's going on with him. He was not at practice today, according to Dave Zangaro. And he also removed any mention of the Philadelphia Eagles on his Instagram and deleted his X account entirely. Now, while that's all, something that to be concerned about, the biggest thing is the knee injury that he suffered against the Cardinals in Week 18, or against the Giants, beg your pardon, and he hasn't practiced since then. Now, we'll find out what happens with the injury report, the final injury report from the Eagles on Saturday. The problem is, for the FFPC Playoff Challenge, this guy does not play, or his team will not play until Monday night. So when you have a situation like that, is A.J. Brown a guy that you can look as a contrarian play in the playoff challenge? I'm a little bit nervous of it because there's a very real possibility he takes a 0 because he doesn't play and the Eagles lose.
Yeah, you're fighting a lot of things here. Availability is the best ability, and you don't know that this guy's bringing it. There's also some issues about the way this team is played overall, and it's what started out as a glorious year and high expectations. The team seemed to go off the cliff here as soon as the month of December came along, and it's a real disappointment just to see what's happening here. So, no, Brown is not a play for me in this contest.
Does that make – would you be more likely to pick a guy like Devonta Smith or Dallas Goedert at this point if A.J. Brown's a full fade for you? Or would you just say, the hell with the Eagles, I don't want to pick any of them?
That would be my play because I believe it's problematic, and I believe they are one and done.
I think that you are right, and I'm glad I'm doing this show with you and not Terp tonight because Terp will probably have a different feeling on it. But we'll get to that when I build my FFPC Playoff Challenge at the end of the show. You'll see how I handled the Eagles in that. Now, another guy that I was really surprised to see the evolution of him since week 17. Sam Laporta is questionable for the game against the Rams this weekend. Hyperextended knee in week 18. And everything we heard from the Lions beat writers, the Lions coaches this week, or at least everything I heard and read, was that they're hopeful, but it's probably not going to happen. Well, he didn't practice Wednesday. He gets a DNP on Thursday. And then today, a full practice, apparently. So Laporta now has a real chance of not only suiting up for the Lions against the Rams, but if the Lions beat the Rams this weekend and they move on, tight end premium format in the FFPC Playoff Challenge, all of a sudden Laporta has entered the discussion again. Or has he? Does the fact that the Lions have so many other choices, Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown, just to name 3 of them, does that make it, is it too risky to take Laporta knowing that he could re-injure it or he might be playing hurt? I tend to lean to the other 3 guys before Laporta, even with the scoring, Ferrell.
This is the contrarian play, and players that had Laporta on their teams this year, they would hate to go very far into this contest without him. And he is. I'm seeing some Patriot-esque injury reports coming out of this Detroit team. It seems like everyone has a miracle healing late in the week. So I'm hopeful. I love watching this player play. But you're right. There are so many opportunities of safer, healthier players. However, Laporta could be that one difference maker. And when we get down to the Super Bowl, Balky, in this contest, is that game double points for your two remaining players?
Absolutely.
And so having a tight end and perhaps a quarterback in that setup could be very rewarding. And so I don't like Detroit's of all the matchups. I probably like the matchup that Detroit has been foisted on them to be the worst matchup that they possibly could have at this point.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Laporta, I'm excited to see him. I mean, as well. I mean, I have him on dynasty teams. I had him on redraft teams this year. Super fun to watch. The fact that he did all of this as a rookie was awesome. But at the same time, I also understand that even if the Lions list him as full and he's questionable and he plays, still makes me a little bit nervous about how involved in the game plan he'll be. Hyperextended knee, that's a tough thing to get over in 1 week. So I'm a little bit nervous, but you're right. I think he could be a mega contrarian play here. A guy that we didn't think was going to be a contrarian play prior to the injury, and now all of a sudden he is. Makes this playoff challenge even more fun. And I'll tell you what makes it fun and maddening is the news out of Baltimore that the Ravens have opened up the 21-day practice window for Mark Andrews after that leg injury. Ian Rappaport had this tweet, or as it is now, X out today. Andrews back at practice. He will not play this weekend, obviously, because none of the Ravens are playing this weekend. The Ravens will have the opportunity to bring him off injured reserve. The initial timeline for this injury had Andrews playing again if the Ravens got deep into the playoffs.
Yeah.
The first week or the divisional week is not deep into the playoffs. Now, this was a fibula injury. This was an ankle injury on a hip drop tackle way back in week 11. This was a significant injury. If they do get him back, it's exciting because he had 45 catches, 544 yards, and 6 touchdowns basically in the first half of the season, Ferrell. Mm-hmm. The problem for me is in this playoff challenge now, Isaiah Likely has looked pretty good.
Yes.
And if Andrews comes back, it kind of muddies the waters for both players. So to me, I'm fading both these players, Andrews and Likely. If I was in this competition and I was in for 10 teams or something like that, then all of a sudden, okay, I can look at having an Andrews team or maybe a Likely team. But for me, now the Ravens kind of come down to Lamar Jackson or Zay Flowers. I don't really have any interest in the Baltimore tight ends, especially if Andrews comes back.
It's true fact, Balky. You are right on top of it. And Likely, we begin to look towards 2024 and Planet Hollywood and the main event, and you begin to imagine what what defenders would do with an offense of Andrews and Likely. That's a fascinating idea. And Likely has not received the numbers of receptions that Andrews does in this offense. They've gone other places, but he is a game changer, playmaking tight end with a lot of good run after the ball. So when you begin to talk about contrarian play, here's a guy with 5 touchdowns in the latter part of the year. Mm-hmm. I think 2 in either the last game or the game before. I don't believe Andrews is a full go. I believe this is a veteran player, and you see a Super Bowl team, you want to open that window. Just having this player in the locker room, ready to play on the sideline. He's a leader of this team, and that's what they want. I think for this contest, we should look elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I mean, it would be fun to have Likely on this team. You mentioned it, Ferrell, what he's been able to do since Andrews went down. I mean, he's had games of 4 for 56, 6 for 70 and a touchdown, 7 for 83 and a touchdown, 6 for 40. I mean, he's had some really, really good games. And if you want to roll the dice here, I think you could throw Likely. And if I was filling out 1 or 2 of these lineups in the playoff challenge, Likely would not be on either. He'd be highly unlikely to be on either one of those.
But you are expecting a Baltimore team that heads to the Super Bowl, right?
If you
that
have
is your AFC Super Bowl
if
team.
you have Lamar Jackson on your team, yeah, I think you are planning on having the Ravens in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that the Chiefs are going to somehow do it, or this is the Bills' year, or somebody else, then I think Zay Flowers is probably a better play. Or, and I'll tell you this too. I was talking with Judd Rosengart and Phil Orban, two of the four
those guys know.
They know. They won. They won the $500K last year.
I'm saying they know.
And both of them suggested with straight faces that if you want to fade the Ravens, maybe the play is actually one Justin Tucker, one of the greatest kickers ever in this sport. Maybe he's your play if you don't believe in the Ravens. I'm just saying that's another option too, if you wanted to go that way. Let's switch over to the NFC. We have Brenden Goebert warming up in the bullpen here. He's going to come on in just a couple of minutes. Before we get to him, I want to get to James Palmer's report today that the OC for the Bucs, Dave Canales, said that the team needs to find a way to make sure that Mike Evans is getting the ball in the playoffs. Evans, for the first 3 months of the season, was awesome. However, Chris Godwin is now the awesome receiver in that offense since the start of December. He's got a 29% target share, does Godwin. Evans is just looking at 19%, this going back to week 12. Evans, over the last 2 games, 6 catches, 92 yards, 2 games combined. That's not great, Bob. Canales says that opposing defenses have really focused on getting Mike Evans out of the game. They're doubling him, sometimes triple covering him as well, which seems to be a little bit overkill. Baker Mayfield has had some injuries. You could make the case that that's probably preventing him from putting the ball in in a spot where Mike Evans can make a play, given the downfield threat that he is. Monday night, the Bucs and Eagles will have a rematch of what happened in week 3. Evans was targeted on 44% of his routes when Tampa played the Eagles in week 3. Now, we'll talk about the Buccaneers here for a second as it relates to Mike Evans. I think that he has the highest ceiling. I think if you go into this contest with no fear and you're only looking at the upside, I think Evans is the slam dunk player for Tampa. However, as Alex Korf from Draft Sharks pointed out to me Thursday night, Evans probably has the lowest floor as well. If there's one guy on this team between, and I'm narrowed it down to Evans, Godwin, and Rachaad White, there's one guy on the team that has the best chance of also getting a 0 or something less than 5, it's probably Evans as well. Ferrell, when you consider what he did against the Eagles early in the season compared to what he is doing right now with Chris Godwin scooping up all these targets, who is the Buccaneer that you like best off this team? Is it Evans? Are you switching to Godwin, or is it Rachaad White?
The one that's not triple covered. But I like the passing. Yeah, they're going to have to throw the ball to be successful in these playoffs. And early on in the year, we talked about this, and I'm in danger of repeating myself. But we had Godwin as the guy that you could depend on, and Evans as the player that was. It's a new season every week based on Mayfield's ability to get him the ball. They forced the ball to him, and Evans with his physical skills and catching ability outside of the catch window made the catches and has been very, very impressive. I thought Godwin first, then Evans as the year went on, and that whole thing has been flipped. Godwin has finally got healthy. Mm-hmm. Mayfield is a solid vet whose play, out in Los Angeles was really benefited him, I think. What's different about him, I think what he got exposed to as a Ram is different about him. But he will go through the progressions and send the ball to the open receiver, and that's what Godwin is. Godwin has been the open receiver closer to the line of scrimmage. So it's – and White is closed very, very strong, but this ball has got to go through the air. It's going to go through the air to beat the Eagles, and from there we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's either Godwin or Evans for me in this contest.
Okay. All right, and I think it kind of and I said this too earlier. If you believe that Tampa beats Philly and they get 2 games, maybe Godwin's the play just because he should see more volume. But you could make the case that if they're beating the Eagles, maybe it's because Mike Evans is burning like James Bradbury or something like that. And you know what I mean? And it might. The thing is, in order for Godwin to blow up, he needs a lot of volume. Evans doesn't need that kind of volume to blow up.
One catch for 50 versus 3 catches for 30.
Yeah, exactly. You got it right. Let's shift gears here, Ferrell, and bring in tonight's guest. He is a 3-time FFPC league champion, but he's here to talk about a much bigger win tonight. Mm-hmm. Not only did he win the $1 million in the Fantasy Pros Championship by finishing first overall. He also took 7th place overall in the same contest. 2 top 7 teams. Unbelievable accomplishment. You follow him on the X, or you should follow him on the X, at B Goebert. That's B_GOEBERT. Please welcome onto the show the Fantasy Pros champion, the newest FFPC millionaire, Mr. Brenden Goebert. Brenden, congratulations and welcome onto the show.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Exciting stuff, man. Like, you are the most chill millionaire I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's sunk in yet, but pretty surreal stuff.
So when you are not winning $1 million playing in the Fantasy Pros Championship, can you tell us what you're doing for a living?
Last few years, I graduated college in 2014, and then thank you, and got my first job a couple years ago, and progressively, and now I do revenue analytics for a healthcare company. So been doing that. So in the spreadsheets a lot of the days, but other than that, playing fantasy football, of course. So
analytics and spreadsheets, Ferrell. Like, I'm telling you, I think I might have an inkling on how Brenden got this done.
And Brenden, where is home for you?
Western New York, Rochester, about 40 minutes west or east of Buffalo.
You grew up a Bills fan?
No, sir.
Well, who are you backing in the earlier days of football?
I grew up a Miami Dolphins fan.
Baby. There you go.
So
you got to love that excitement of South Florida football. Okay, so you roll in to work on Monday after this, or maybe even you took Monday off. But how do you explain to your fellow analysts who are buried over their spreadsheets and computers, how do you explain to them, oh, by the way, look what happened in football this weekend with me? How do you break the ice in these conversations? Because it hasn't sunk in with you yet. I'd like to know about the coworkers, friends, family, something like that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, not everybody knows yet, but the ones who do know that I've splurged the news with, you just kind of come up with a funny story. You kind of break it to them. They don't believe you.
Yes, they don't believe you.
You got to show some visual evidence eventually, but it's case by case basis. I think everyone's got their own little way of finding out. But
So in the weeks leading up to the week 17, Brenden, did you tell any friends or family like what was on the line? Say like, oh yeah, I get this fantasy football thing. I'm doing pretty good in it. I got a shot at it. Did you tell anybody about it, or did you just keep that to yourself and just wait to see what happened?
Yeah, I was telling people, I had 5 teams and I had 1 co-managed team with my dad.
Dad's doing all the talking. Now I know where the leak's coming from.
Exactly.
Bob's doing all the talking. Probably hired a publicist.
Exactly. No, but so I won. So I had the 2 teams that I was following, that I saw, but when the sprint started, the team that eventually ended up winning, I think it started in 200 something, 300 something place, and I never thought I would have a chance until the Saturday night game when the Lions and the Cowboys played in that the shootout eventually, and Amon-Ra and CD were going back and forth, and CD put up 40. Yeah, and then so I texted a screenshot to a couple of my buddies, and I was like, root for this team, root for all these guys, and they did their part. So
become Cowboy fans all of a sudden.
Exactly.
John Terry jumps in there and says, "Don't tell anyone." And you see that around the internet now, a lot on Instagram. They say, you keep your business to yourself. Keep private about those things. I think it would be enjoyable to tell people, because you can really put together your list of supporters and champions and advocates when you gauge the reaction of everyone. And yeah. I think that would be a lot of fun just to gauge that reaction. But I tell you, my reaction is very, very pleased. to know you won. We need great young players in the FFPC, and you certainly have fulfilled your legend at an early age.
Yeah, well, it's a great contest. Once I found out about it, I've been itching to play it for a couple of years, and finally jumped in last year, and then
now you're a millionaire. Unbelievable.
It's yeah.
I don't want to compare. I don't want to put a price on like what it was like having my first child. But I'll say this. There were times after my son was born 11 years ago where I would wake up in the middle of the night or I'd wake up in the morning and I'd think about like, oh my God, I'm a father. Where you spend your whole life and you're not a father. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're all of a sudden a father. I wonder if you had any of those moments over the course of the last couple of weeks, Brenden, where you're laying in bed or you're daydreaming or you're thinking about something or you're focused on work and all of a sudden everything stops and you're just like, my God, I just won $1 million playing fantasy football. Have you had any of those moments?
One. It was when I went to, I think I had just gotten back from the store or something one night last week. And, I just logged on to the FFPC app and my account was bigger.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like, oh, I should get that out. So that was when that's when it first really was just like, okay, that's pretty crazy.
A spreadsheet guy, an analyst guy, he wants to see it in black and white. He wants to see the numbers. He wants to see the ink or the digital representation on the page. Okay, so you told us a little bit about how you celebrate. You're an even kill guy, so I imagine have you thought about, and we'll get on to some football questions in a minute, but have you thought about what you're going to do and how you're going to maybe celebrate and what might be a little different in 2024 for you? That last February in New York was February in New York. This one's got a little different feel. So what's going to be happening this year?
Well, in terms of celebrating, I'm not really. It's a cliche answer to say I really don't know, but I really
can help you with that, sir. We'll be able to consult with that.
I do have one idea.
Let's hear it.
My brother, my father, and I are pretty big golfers. So I was thinking, maybe a golf excursion to, not Augusta National or anything. Haven't checked the prices, but one of the maybe like a Bethpage Black. I'm not sure what the public fee on that is, but if I take a trip down to New York City or something like that.
How about to Scotland? I mean, that's the heritage of your name anyway, is it not?
Go to the old course.
There
you go.
Yeah, we go to the mountain area, Western New York, Adirondacks, every summer, and we played a links course this summer. Let me tell you, it's a lot different than your standard American course. But,
yes, sir. And you're tempted to wear knickers.
Now, John. Now everybody's coming out with their golf suggestions. John Terry is saying Pebble Beach is where to go. I'll tell you this, and this being a Western New York guy, Brenden, but if you time it just right, you can come to Whistling Straits in southern Wisconsin. That 7 days of summer that we get here in Wisconsin. If you time it just right, it might crack 60 degrees. And so that'd be another course you could go to as well. How did you remind us, because I forgot, where were you at coming into the final week 17, with those two teams that you were paying attention to, especially the one that really took off on Saturday night? And then how did you spend, like, where were you watching? Did you even watch the week 17 action? I know some people don't even want to watch it. How did you spend week 17?
Yep. So I think the team that eventually won was in just like 90th, maybe, going into week 17. And then the team that finished 7th, that was way back. I think it was like 250, 300. So I wasn't even thinking about that team, really. And then once the week 17 kicked off, I was just kind of doing some stuff around my apartment, and I had the TV. I was watching the Ravens-Dolphins game, which was unfortunate.
Of course.
Well, fortunate and unfortunate because I had Lamar on my team.
Mhm.
But once I think it was within like the first, so once I eventually moved up to 40th after the Saturday night game, or around that placing, so I knew, I was like, well, maybe there's a shot to get in the top 10, make a good chunk of change. And then Lamar scored, Kyron scored, and it just kind of started happening. I wasn't checking the score where I was going up to until I told myself, I was laying on the couch, I was like, I'm not checking until the 4:00 games kick off.
Okay,
Right.
that's fair.
Because that entire team was done after the 1:00 games. So I just wanted to know what my score was. And we'll get into a start sit decision, I'm sure, later on in the show, but that I had on that team. But and then I had Ty Chandler on the 7th place team.
Mm-hmm.
So I was rooting for him at night. I was watching. I knew a couple guys had Reed and Jones behind me, but they really needed a big game to catch them.
What was approximately the final spread of points between the championship team and the 7th place team? Do you recall?
I
could probably look that up, actually.
Balky's right on top of those
I'm on top of
numbers.
it, yeah.
Between my two teams, I think it was like 40 points, maybe.
Yeah, well,
So just Brenden on that. So the team that eventually won it, all those players were done after the 1:00 games on Sunday, correct?
Well, that's as long as I can recall that correctly.
Okay.
I believe so.
All right. So now, if I'm also remembering correctly, that team put up a 221, something like that, in
It was
week 17.
Yeah, it was like 230.
So here's the thing that I don't like. What did you see first? Did you see that you were in first place, or did you see that you put up a 221 going into those 4:00 games? What number did you see first, and what was your reaction to that?
The 221. I checked my team first.
Okay.
Just to see
good number.
that I wasn't thinking I was scoring more than I actually was.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, I wasn't going to check the overall leaderboard,
Mm-hmm.
or my team score. But yeah, I was like, well, that's a good day. Hopefully no one else is doing anything. So,
Yeah, well, that's right. And if they were doing it, they might have done it somewhat in the way you did without tight ends. I thought your structure of your team was pretty interesting. I'd like you to tell us who you ended up with at tight end, but for the first 8 rounds, you didn't touch that position, and that's hard not to pull that trigger on tight end in this contest. This year I picked Evan Ingram, and I was rewarded for it. That was the best move that I have made, and as a player, Balky will tell you that I have never been a champion for. Did you just not? Did you see drop-offs and potential tight end play? Could you not finish out the rookies, or did you have your eye on a guy that was a real bargain as you approached double digits drafting?
The guy on my team was one of the guys I was very high on coming into the year. There was 2. Everyone says to fade rookie tight ends. I really liked Kincaid and Laporta coming into the year. I just thought they had the playing time.
And when did you draft this team? Do you recall? Do you recall the draft day of this team?
September 5th, was it? If I
a couple days right before the season.
Yeah,
started.
it was late. It was late. So Laporta was your pick in the 9th round. You got another tight end like 2 rounds after that, I think. I should have it up, and I don't have it up, and I apologize.
I think it was Juwan Johnson, maybe.
Juwan Johnson. That's who it was. It was Juwan Johnson. You're right.
It didn't work out too well, but
yeah. But I mean, look, Laporta was such a home run; it didn't have to work out all that well. Curiously, as I looked at this team earlier today, you're drafting from the 10 spot, and in the first 12 rounds, after 12 rounds had gone by, you had 1 running back on your roster.
Wow.
You found a way to utilize 11 of your first 12 picks on positions other than running back. Now, that running back was DeAndre Swift. He had a solid season for sure. I want to know, and I know a lot of the viewers want to know, was this by design? Do you normally avoid running backs? Are you a 0 RB guy, or did the board just play out this way where you just found a lot of value in receiver? I know you got Lamar Jackson, and we already talked about Sam Laporta as well. But can you tell us a little bit, as this draft was happening, Were you purposely avoiding running back, or were you finding some other values at other positions?
I would never say I purposely avoid running back, but I do subscribe to the theory. I don't want to get kicked off the stream for the anti-zero RB people out there. I know it's a very hotly debated topic and whatnot. I know that it has its enthusiasts and stuff, but it's a fragile position. It's when there's guys like CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown available in the first round, it's just hard for me to pass up those guys. I know it's you can start up to 4. You only have to start 2 receivers in this format, but I think
you could start up to 4, which
you
makes
can
it
start
good.
up to 4 wide receivers, which I had 3 that were really good all year, at least, and having Debo on that team as well. But I would never say I avoid running backs. If Christian McCaffrey was available at the 10th pick, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey. But I was never going to force it. I never try to force a pick. Just kind of let the board come to me.
And there was no panic for you either, right? I mean, I know you took some running back. You hit on Kyron Williams late. Congratulations on that. That was massive. But if I was drafting that team after like round 3 or 4, I'd be like, okay, I gotta get some running backs here. I gotta get some running backs here. You just held the course, stayed the course, as George H.W. Bush would say, 1,000 points of light. You stayed the course, and then you got the run. You started adding some running backs in the latter portion of the draft. But they're clearly. I mean, were you panicked at all? Were you concerned at all that you only had one running back through 12 rounds?
If I remember correctly, I think Mostert. I was gonna draft Mostert, and I didn't like Mostert coming into the year.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, as a Dolphins fan, I just did not. I didn't hate him, but I didn't love him either.
I love Mostert.
Pretty sure he might have been drafted right before I picked Florida. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the draft.
I'm going to bring it up right now.
Yeah, I know he was around there, and I was going to draft him, but I'm pretty sure I got sniped on that pick. And once that happened, I don't know if I went on tilt or if I just said, all right, I'm definitely not going to get I just didn't like any of the running backs left and just kind of loaded up on other positions.
Well, I really like,
just real quick. I just found it here. So this is interesting because at the 9-10, you only had one running back and you had 0 tight ends. So at the 9-10, you took Laporta.
Yep.
The guy in the 11 spot, and this had to kill you as a guy who needed running backs and as a guy who loves his Dolphins. The guy in the 11 spot, right after you take Laporta, takes Mostert.
Yeah.
Then it comes back in the 10th round, and he takes Devon Achane as well.
I'm glad you beat him. I don't even know who that is, but I'm glad. I'm really glad you. Now, when you come to Kentucky and play, your team name is going to be Only the Shadow Knows. I like this vibe that he's got with the shadows, and we're going to get you some room decor. We're going to send you some popular decor. We're going to send you some dolphin related room material there, but you got to win and smile. And in the old words of Dean Martin from Ocean's 11, you went to sleep and kept grinning. So that's that's what you did the night you won. So. Well, he did. Balky, maybe John Terry's got some more questions. He's the only guy here tonight, along with Rubio.
Right. So this is good. Well, and I'll tell you this too. I just looked it up. Brendan's your top 2 teams, your first place and your 7th place team, separated by 34.64 points.
It's fantastic
between those two. And that 7th place, you put up a 221 with the team that won it all. And then that 7th place team put up a 211 in the final week.
How many teams in this contest, Balky?
What did you have this year? 5? Was it?
I had 5 on my own and then 1 co-managed.
Oh, the co-managed one, right.
But how many teams in the overall contest, Fantasy Pros?
All of Fantasy Pros. Yes. 5 teams and then 1 co-owned team.
No, sir. One more time.
Yeah.
How many competitive teams?
All right. I'm sorry. I'm totally misunderstood.
Get out your spreadsheet.
Right. I'd have to get out my spreadsheet. I don't know. I don't know the exact number. I know it did not sell out. My guess
damn near close.
14,000.
14,000. We got a guy here that was 1 and 7.
Unbelievable.
1 and 7.
Well, they're pretty similar teams. They had pretty similar core components.
Well, you know how to draw them up, man.
They both had the Amon-Ra CD combo.
Do you remember where you drafted from the seventh place team? What slot you were in?
Probably 9. I remember having 9 to 12 on like all my drafts.
Okay, all right, and it worked out for you. So congratulations there as well. Yeah, let's get into So John Terry, a guy who has won a boatload of cash in the FFPC, did post a question in here, and it goes with the email that we have that I'm going to ask you now, Brenden. This is from Rich in Hicksville, Ohio. Which Dolphin should I use in the FFPC Playoff Challenge this weekend, Brenden? And then John Terry, if I can find his, and I'll put it up on the screen if I can find it. John Terry actually went a little bit deeper into this. Should we fade all Dolphins? They're playing in the lowest total of the week. It's going to be 0 degrees, maybe minus 30 with the wind chill. They're missing 6 defensive starters due to injury, and they're playing Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, a guy who in cold weather games has been, quite frankly, awful. And you know this, Brenden, as a Dolphins fan. Should we just, in the playoff challenge, would you just get rid of all Dolphins and not play any of them? Or is there one that stands out here that you'd really, if you're going to play a Dolphin, you got to get this guy in your lineup?
I definitely think fading all Dolphins is reasonable. I've heard it discussed by a lot of sharp people that, that is a viable strategy for sure. I think it is. It's always hard to fade Tyreek Hill. The guy can put up 40 in negative 40-degree weather. I do think a contrarian way to play it would be A-Chain, because I think he'd be or A-Chan, because I think if the Dolphins have any shot of winning this game, he's going to be their best way of doing it in the weather. And, the Chiefs kind of have a leaky run D every now and then. If McDaniel commits to running the ball, he could put up a good score. I'm only doing one entry. I have Tyreek Hill on my team. I think it's very hard I just think, it's a 4.5 point spread the last time I checked. It could be very low scoring, but Tyreek could have 10 receptions, low scoring. I don't think the Dolphins are going to win the game, but I do think I don't like soft fading it really. So I think Tyreek, A-Chan, or if you're bold enough, fade.
I think that's sage advice. And I don't know, like in Western New York, I don't know how much, I'm sure there's a lot of the Bills Mafia surrounding you. So we'll get your opinion on this as well. Regardless of how you feel about them and regardless how much you follow them, you do follow the Bills at least the 2 games they play against the Dolphins every year. And Jeremy in Cary, North Carolina wants to know, hey, Brenden, Josh Allen or James Cook in the FFPC Playoff Challenge, which one would you go with? Congrats on the $1 million. And thank you for the email, Jeremy in Cary, North Carolina. He narrows it down to Allen or Cook. I think Kincaid would be in the discussion. I think we should bring up Diggs as well. Brenden, how are you handling the Bills in your playoff challenge?
Thank you for the congratulations, Jim and Cary, I think.
Jeremy and Cary. Yep.
Jeremy and Cary, thank you. Tyreek revenge game.
Yeah, that's right.
For the Bills, yes. They're my Super Bowl pick. I think it's their year. So I'm going to play it through Josh Allen. I know this week's game is calling for about 1 million feet of snow. And if the wind outside my window right now is anything close to what they're going to get in Buffalo.
Wow, yeah.
Could be a little low-scoring first-round game, but, 4 games of Josh Allen and then the 2-point multiplier. I'm going to play it through Allen. I think a lot of people are going to play it through Lamar. So that's going to be my little pivot. I know the Ravens will be tough to beat, but I think it's the Bills' year. As a Dolphins fan, I hate to say that, but I think they're the team this year.
The Balky, we got any more emails?
Nope, that's it. That's
I got a question. Being commissioner of a league, I hear a lot of stories that, wish I had stories. And there's something, I haven't validated it, but it came from a pretty good source, that there was a guy that might have won the FFPC main event if he had started Lamar Jackson instead of Sam Howell. He made a late addition of starting Sam Howell. Here in Kentucky, We have a very good player that had Chiefs running back Pacheco in the lineup for the entire week, but when Saturday night rolled around, he put Pollard in, and that cost him the championship. Making all the right moves is the right thing. You seem to be a very, very cool customer. Was there a move that you might have done that you considered doing that would have made the difference that we'd be talking to somebody else tonight?
Yes. I took so I ended up winning by 7, I think. And I almost cost myself the eventual million because at 12:58 I put in Isaiah Likely for Jaden Reed, and Jaden Reed outscored Likely by I think 8 on that Sunday night. And I think if I had lost or finished, third or fourth, and Likely wouldn't have done the job, I think I don't know how I'd be like sitting here talking like this. It would be just a brutal. So I'm glad that decision didn't come back to haunt me. So I kind of rearranged your question, but the decision worked out, but it could have been real bad.
Yeah, you lived in agony. You lived in agony for a few hours. I understand.
Exactly.
You ended up winning by about 9 and change. And that game you said you put in Likely.
Yep.
Okay.
I had Jaden Reed in all week. And then I said, if I'm going to try and win this, I'm going to go for the Baltimore correlation. So
Balky, you coined your quote about it. Don't let me steal it from you.
What's that?
Think long.
Oh yeah. Yes, you're right. Think long, think wrong. That's usually the way it works out for me. So Isaiah Likely actually did have a pretty good game. Yep. Like points wise, he actually only caught 2 passes, 2 for 42, but both were touchdowns.
2 important.
19.2. Yes. 19.2. Jaden Reed ended up also catching 2 touchdowns. He went 6 for 89, 2 receiving touchdowns. He went 26.9. So you're right. It was about a difference of 7.7 that could have separated you from $1 million. Okay. Let's not think about that. That is not pleasant to think about.
That's last week's news.
That's last week's news. That's a problem for past you. We're in present Brenden Goebert right now. Let's talk about well, I should ask you this real quick. Was there anybody, and normally I check this and I didn't check it with you. Was there a big waiver wire addition that you made throughout the season that carried you that you were able to plug in for multiple weeks that really helped you out? Or was this team really, made during the draft?
Well, I started Kyron Williams from week 1. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely made during the draft, but Likely was a pickup.
Okay.
I believe he was a pickup. I didn't use him every week, but because I had Laporta, obviously. Mm-hmm. But tight end premium, you're going to use.
Did you pick him up before the Andrews injury? Could you see that, or did you go spend some money after Andrews went down? Hard to remember.
I'd have to look, but I might have picked him up before the injury.
I think you did.
November 22nd is when you picked him up.
Because I liked him going into the year. I just thought he was pretty good. I thought he would have a bigger role than he actually did to start.
Me too.
The year. But and then once Andrews went down, obviously he was going to step into a big role. But so kind of lucked out on that. But
do you have a player, because we're going to have the Never Too Early Best Ball, which I didn't mention on this show, the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament actually already filled its first league. It starts in a week, a slow draft there. So we're going to have best ball drafts popping off here in the next week or so, where many players are already looking forward to drafting for 2024. Brenden, I don't know if you've looked to 2024 at all, but is there a player that you are excited about this year that you want to be in on in a lot of your drafts? And then is there also a player that you're like, you know what, I know he had a big 2023, or a lot of people are thinking he's going to have a big 2024 and I'm off of him? Are there any players at this point in the season in mid-January that would fit either of those descriptors?
Probably. Player that I'd probably be lower on, unfortunately, because he just won me a good chunk of money, is probably Kyron. Honestly, he's gonna be a first round pick. Undoubtedly, and that backfield, you know, I mean, it was Cam Akers coming into the year. You never really know with McVay. So as much as I appreciate Kyren Williams and like Kyren Williams, I don't know how much of him I would have next year. Player I'm going to be high on. A lot of it depends on coaching and, you know, what teams do in the draft, but I'll give you two guys. I'll give you a early round pick, probably Garrett Wilson. I just think he's an absolute stud. If Rodgers comes back healthy or whatnot, I think he could contend for overall wide receiver 1, honestly. And then probably Rashee Rice. Really like Rashee Rice, you know, growing into playing full time now. He's gonna Kelsey getting older.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I mean, that Rashee Rice was basically like a top 12 receiver for the last month of the season, you know, based on what he was doing. So I think we've got our answer for the next good Kansas City receiver. I don't know about great, but next good Kansas City receiver is going to be Rashee Rice. John Terry also chiming in. Are you going to go to Vegas moving up to the main event in 2024? And I could tell JT that you already played in the main event this year, Brenden. It was online. Would you be thinking about maybe bringing your dad out to Las Vegas, drafting a team in the main event in the FFPC Live next year?
Thinking about it this year. So yeah, I played in the main event this year because I got I won the league last year, and I used that free entry redeem thing. So won it this year, and then so I'm going to play the main event next year. I redeemed my prize for the free entry. And
it was very important that you won that free entry this year too. We wanted you, you know, to make sure you had that in line.
I like the structure of having the 5 fantasy teams and then kind of the main event team. You know, I like that structure. It's not too much.
I'll be picking you up at the airport in Las Vegas around September 6th or 7th.
Yeah,
let's go. You know,
I've never been to Vegas. I've always wanted to go to Vegas, so it might be the year to check that out.
It'd be a good reason to go for sure. Did you what did your dad did you tell your dad, was he following it when you won the $1 million? What was his reaction?
He was the first one to know. I called him before the Packers-Vikings game that Sunday night. I asked him how much he liked Aaron Jones as a person, and he said, "Why?" And I was like, "Well, as long as he doesn't score 37 PPR points, you know, we're gonna celebrate." So,
what did you do anything that night after the Packers-Vikings game?
Laughed.
Told you, Bulky. He kept winning.
Right.
John Terry says he'll have a limo. This man doesn't ride in limos. He doesn't need that. He's the Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Of the FFPC. He doesn't ride in limos, for God's sakes, John Terry.
It was
goodness.
We touched on this, and Ferrell, I'm going to steal this last question. Okay. We touched on this earlier with the golf thing. Taking your brother and your dad on a golf excursion, which I think is a tremendous way to utilize this money. Over the course of now, you've had this, you know, you've known about having this money for about a week and a half or so. Has anything else popped in your head? And you're like, you know, I always wanted this or I always wanted that, and now I'm going to have this extra spending cash to go ahead and get it. Is there anything else besides the golf trip that you've thought about?
Just. Not really. Not for myself. I know I'm going to do something for my mom. I don't know what I'm going to do. She doesn't know yet. She doesn't know yet.
If she's watching tonight, she'll know now.
She will. I should have sent her the link.
She can always watch it later too.
Maybe she's a secret FFPC grinder and listens to the podcast, and she'll contact me. But
they pop out of everywhere this time of year.
Mother's Day once a week in 2020.
Yeah, there you go.
She's a big dog person. Maybe I'll get her a dog house or something.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. That would be a good way to do it. There will be a lot of people, if you do come to Vegas, if you do decide to make that choice, Brenden, there's going to be a lot of people that'll want to meet you, obviously winning the $1 million in the FantasyPros Championship. Until then, we will follow you on the X at B_Goebert. That's B_GOEBERT. And listen, dude, congratulations. Well-deserved.
Thank you.
You are incredibly calm tonight. I think we are going to dub you the Chillionaire because you are incredibly calm with knowing that you got this 7 figures coming your way. Incredible stuff on a fantastic season, 1st and 7th place. Unbelievable. And we will be rooting for you to do it again next year, because that'd be an incredible story as well. Hopefully we'll see you in Vegas. It was great seeing you tonight. Be good, dude. Thanks so much for joining the show, and have a tremendous 2024.
Thank you, guys. Good luck the rest of the year. Thanks for having me.
You got it. That is Brenden Goebert, ladies and gentlemen, the $1 million winner in the Fantasy Pros Championship. Hopping aboard the high stakes fantasy football.
I like that kid.
Good guy, smart guy. The Chillionaire, who wouldn't like him? So this is the first time in history that we've had on back-to-back $1 million winners on the show, and what a tremendous night to do it. And the thing is, now we don't have a whole lot of time to go over my playoff challenge roster. So here's what I want to do, Ferrell.
Okay.
I want to present it to you. I know I put it on the rundown, so you should be able to see it, but I'm going to tell the listeners what I have here. Okay. Now, over the course of the week, I have formed a playoff challenge lineup with Judd Rosengart and Phil Orban, the two of the 4 dudes who won it last year, along with Steven Aarons and Tim Hall. We did that on Tuesday night. Last night, I did one with Alex Korf from Draft Sharks. We formulated one. And then earlier this afternoon, I did a show with Andrew Cooper, the Fantasy Fiasco show on Fantasy Alarm YouTube. We formulated another lineup there. I feel like I have the best of everything, or perhaps the worst of everything, in this lineup tonight. So here's what I got.
Committee team.
This is not a committee team. This is I didn't even enter this. This is not, to my knowledge, this team has not been entered in the FFPC Playoff Challenge. This is what I put together here. My quarterback is Brock Purdy. It's my pivot off of Christian McCaffrey. So I had McCaffrey on those other 3 teams, and I wanted to do something different here. So Purdy is what I have here. Running backs will be, I have 4 of them. Going with James Cook from Buffalo, again, a Josh Allen pivot. I'm going with Rachaad White as my Buccaneer. I'm going with David Montgomery in Detroit over Jahmyr Gibbs, over Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then the guy who helped Brenden Goebert win $1 million, Kyren Williams, will be my 4th running back. So Cook, White, Montgomery, and Williams. Receivers, I have a few. I have 4 of those as well. I think 4. 4, yeah. Rashee Rice in Kansas City. No Mahomes for me. No Kelsey for me. Going with Rashee Rice. Zay Flowers, my pivot from Lamar Jackson. You say, Balky, I think you're getting too contrarian, and you might be right. But Rashee Rice, Zay Flowers.
You can only pivot from a quarterback once. You keep
you're right.
From the quarterback. Okay. You only use one quarterback.
Good
Your
point.
Pivot was exhausted with McCaffrey. You're pivoting from someone else.
Now I'm just picking players. I'm not.
You're
not a pivot. That's a good point. So Rashee Rice and Zay Flowers are my 2 receivers. Are my 2 of my 4 receivers. The other ones, CeeDee Lamb, cannot get away from him.
No.
And then Nico Collins in Houston. So a couple of Texas receivers there, Lamb and Collins. I only have 1 tight end, which surprised me when I put this together. I thought I'd have more than 1, but David Njoku is my only tight end. I'm going with Jake Elliott from the Eagles, so a soft fade there. And then the Miami Dolphins, for lack of better options. I'm betting on the weather, picking the battered Dolphins defense as my defense. So there you go, Ferrell. Purdy, Cook, White, Montgomery, Williams, Flowers, Rice, Lamb, Collins, and Njoku, Elliott, and the Dolphins. What do you think?
You should keep the same teams at Houston and Cleveland, and you should flip. And you should get Cooper in your lineup at receiver, removing Collins, and you should get my beloved tight end who has had a late season renaissance, Dalton Schultz, and put him in at the tight end. And the only reason I say that is because both those players excelled towards the end of the season when these teams went head to head. And Cooper has shown the ability to put up a 40-point game. So even in a losing opportunity, he could give you 2 games worth of production. And Collins is fantastic, but I think you should. I think you need a tight end that will go deeper into the contest, and I see Houston winning that game with a chaser game from Cooper. That's the only thing I would change in this lineup. Everything else to me makes sense.
Well, I have officially changed it, and now it is the HSFF hour entry here. Purdy, Cook, White, Montgomery, Kyron Williams. Yes, sorry, Barney Newkirk, who is chiming in on Facebook. Or no, not Barney Newkirk. It is Chris Milliken on YouTube. No Puka Nacua. No Puka Nacua on this. Receivers, Rashee Rice, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. Tight end will be Dalton Schultz. Kickers, Jake Elliott. Defense are the Miami Dolphins. And by the way, John Terry, Balky not taking a Packer? No, I'm not taking a Packer, because as much as I hope the Packers win, I don't believe they will. Fun fact, they have never lost an AT&T Stadium, which is kind of weird to think about. Aaron Jones has been running through Cowboys fans' nightmares for the last several years, but the Packers defense is the Packers defense. I don't think that they can stop. I don't think they can slow down CeeDee Lamb, much less stop him. And I think Pollard has a good day as well. I think the Cowboys win this by double digits, but it's still a tremendous season for Green Bay. I'll be pulling for them. I don't see it happening, which was why I'm fading. The two teams I faded here were the Packers and the Steelers, the 2-7.
In answer to John Terry, Chris Milliken, and our beloved Barney Newkirk, this is why you end up with 4 or 5 teams. Those questions are what leads you to have multiple teams in this country.
And so I'm very on brand here. So I'm putting out there a team for everybody to pick apart and say, well, if that's your team, you better get another one. Well, there's spots available.
We got a request here. We have a request where I would have to come very chalky about it from Mr. Terry.
What John Terry said?
Something about Super Bowl weekend.
Okay. Sorry. I see it here. I missed it before. Super Bowl predictions. So I guess the eve of the playoffs, we can pick who we think is going to be in it. Okay. Let's go with in honor of Chris Berman. I'm going to say the Bills and the Niners get there. And I'm going to say the Niners win that game 29-23 in the Super Bowl. I'll say Niners 29, Bills 23. There you go.
I'm very chalky. I have the Niners and the Ravens, and I clearly think they're the best teams. I absolutely love the quarterback at the Niners, who with all those tools on that offense, knows how to distribute the ball, knows how to make them happy. I will trust his arm and his decision-making process in the Super Bowl over Lamar's pure athleticism. But I'm calling these two chalky teams in the Super Bowl with an overtime game that will lead us to enjoy football even more as we go through 2020.
Absolutely. And what better place to watch that than at Caesars Southern Indiana? You can sign up right now, KFFSC.com. Get in those drafts with those spots that are still available, and you can watch it, draft teams, and then watch the Super Bowl in style there. It's going to be a blast, KFFSC.com. Ferrell, so good to have you back on the show. I know it's only been 1 week, but it always seems longer. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll talk with you again next week, man.
See you soon, buddy.
You got it. That's Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football here, my co-host with the most on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I do want to thank him. I want to thank Brenden Goebert, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you watching, streaming, downloading, whatever you're doing. We appreciate it. The hsffhour will be back next Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern time. We will have another great guest for you. Nothing booked yet, but I promise you I will get somebody on. In case you missed Tuesday's RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, this is a good one to rewatch prior to submitting your lineups. We had the 2022-2023 world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge, $500,000 winners, Judd Rosengart and Phil Orban on. We put together a lineup there on the air. We also went really deep into a lot of these teams. So I would highly recommend checking that out on the FFPC socials, the RotoViz podcast feed. You can check that out and watch that or listen to it prior to submitting your lineups. The show will return this Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. It's our season 8 finale. Bill McCall, the 7th place finisher in the FFPC Playoff Challenge 2 last year. He's going to join me, and we'll probably throw together a divisional playoff lineup there on that show as well. You can watch last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football show on the Better Sports Network on any of their socials or the FFPC social media channels. It was myself and Draft Shark's Alex Korf. This is another program where we spent a lot of time on the playoff challenge. We spent a half hour on the NFC, we spent a half hour in the AFC, and we've spent a half hour mulling over the best lineup to throw together. And I think we did a good job on that. So check that out and rewatch it in case you missed that. This coming Thursday at 7 o'clock until 9, we'll go live again with the 33rd team's Kevin Wheeler. So Wheeler will be back on the show. It's going to be cool to have him back on as well. Final reminder, the FFPC Playoff Challenge is here. 2 great contests, same format. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. You choose the 12 players that you want to ride throughout the entire postseason. Once they are locked in, they are locked in. You don't have to mess around with it at all. It's a fantastic competition, and I hope you join it. $500,000 at stake in the $200 entry, $100,000 at stake in the $35 entry. The $100,000 contest is about 85% full. The $500,000 contest is about 75% full. I'd have to check my numbers. I think that's pacing ahead of last year. So make sure that you are registering, getting those teams in, and submitting those lineups prior to kickoff at 4:30 tomorrow. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on it, and then share it with your friends and enemies. Get notified every time we go live so you will never miss any of the FFPC content when we bring on some of the FFPC's best players like Brenden Goebert, and hopefully help you become a better high-stakes fantasy football player as well. Get those playoff challenge lineups in. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I was talking with Andrew Cooper today on the Fantasy Fiasco show, and he brought to my attention that there were, when he was looking over the numbers from last year, there were teams that entered but never entered a lineup in it, which is really unfortunate because if you enter the contest, make sure you enter players in your lineup. The one sure way to lose is to not enter a lineup at all. So once you register those teams, make sure you're putting lineups in as well. That is my humble plea to you tonight here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Enjoy the NFL playoffs. It's one of the best times of the year, and we get a big-time super wildcard weekend with 6 games. And hopefully this will be the kickoff for one of you to be winning $500,000 as well when you sign up for the playoff challenge at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk with you next Friday.